I hope that the individual will be able to learn different techniques to use healing foods, natural remedies, herbs to maintain the health of their immune system. And we're going to feature broccoli, cabbage, kale, garlic, some herbs like oregano, citrus fruit, and probiotics, and a few other items. At the end of this workshop, I believe that the participant will be able to obtain indispensable information to be able to maintain the optimal health for and immunity for themselves and for their family. So let's start. Food is medicine. What are the top daily nutrients that we need when it comes to our immune system health? And in my opinion, I think those top nutrients that we need for immune system health are chlorophyll, which are found in leafy greens or green colored vegetables, even green seaweed like spirulina or chlorella, antioxidants, which we can find from berries, and these include vitamin C, or from citrus fruit, probiotics, which are essential microorganisms, beneficial bacteria, which are found in our gut, which we need magnesium, sulfur, zinc, iodine, and many B vitamins, which are known as a supplement form as B complex. And they range from B1 all the way to B12. And really B12 is extremely important if you are consuming a plant-based or vegetarian diet or not eating a lot of meat in your diet. So it's essential to be able to have B12 supplemented in your diet if you are having this type of diet. For foods as medicines, I did speak to you a little bit about the foods that we would be featuring today. And for a healthy immune system, top foods include garlic, beans. So we need to have a diet rich in fiber, and beans are wonderful for having a fiber-rich diet. Whole grains are also wonderful for having a fiber-rich diet. Brassica vegetables, including broccoli, kale, cabbage, Brussels sprouts, also mustard greens are a wonderful source. And there's more radishes is also part of this family. So there's a long list of vegetables that are part of the brassica family. And these are really, really good for our immune system because many of these are high in vitamin C and also minerals that include sulfur and magnesium. And so it's essential to be eating brassica vegetables in our daily meals. Leafy greens, cultured vegetables, which I'll do a short demonstration, how to make your own cultured vegetables. Seaweed contains iodine. And so we wanna be able to incorporate seaweed into our diet. And so in today's recipe on cultured vegetables, I'll be sharing with you how to incorporate seaweed into your diet using cultured vegetables. Citrus fruits, sorry for the noise. It's out of our control. And berries. So I will be featuring recipes which cover all of these vegetables, food groups, except for the whole grains in today's presentation. Well, actually, I lied. We have some whole grains here. So one of the recipes I'm making is a bean salad. And so you'll be able to taste the bean salad with some whole grain crackers. And so I stress a lot in every workshop the value and the importance of having chlorophyll in your diet. Chlorophyll is necessary for our immunity and really overall health in general. It is what makes plants green. It's rich in vitamins, antioxidants. It also helps to clear toxins from your body and to help your body have oxygen in your bloodstream. And so it's essential for just so much that happens in your body. You want to make sure that you have healthy blood because that blood travels. So chlorophyll is one of the ways of doing that, of incorporating, having healthy blood. So now we're going to go into the segment on natural remedies. And for natural remedies, I wanted to include this time a long list of ways that you can reduce stress. So, and also ways to maintain overall health. So in this workshop this morning, my mom spoke about sprouts, but also the value of staying hydrated. And so I wanted to incorporate that too. So it's very, very important to stay hydrated to have a healthy immune system, because being hydrated helps you be able to excrete toxins from your body naturally, whether that's through perspiration or through urine or through having bowel movements. If you're dehydrated, you will be constipated, or you won't be sweating sufficiently. And so this is a wonderful way to maintain overall health. Other ways that I maintain my immunity and manage my stress levels, because if you're too stressed, that can actually lower your immunity. So ways that you can manage your stress levels naturally are to get sufficient rest, to have fresh air, to breathe fresh air, to get sunshine, get some vitamin D, which gets created when we're exposed to sunshine. And the interesting thing is that calcium is really only absorbed in your body when you're getting sunshine. So if you're eating a calcium-rich breakfast and then you go outside, you'll be able to absorb that calcium. Having healthy companionship, friendships, relationships, that's a wonderful way of reducing your stress naturally. Gardening, doing forest bathing. Forest bathing is when you go for a hike or a walk in the forest or in an area that's covered in trees. And that actually has been known scientifically to reduce our stress. And so we're essentially being bathed by these trees around us. And earthing, which is a technique to where you remove your shoes and you walk barefoot on the grass or dirt, and that helps to your body to release some of the stress and too much charge that you have to go into the ground. And these natural remedies help to calm your heart rate. It helps to boost your mood. It boosts your endorphin level. It calms you down with serotonin. It helps you reduce your cortisol levels, which go up when you're in a high stressful situation. And cortisol is meant to help you escape a situation. So there is a purpose for it, but too high, being constantly stressed and in this state of high cortisol can be inflammatory. So we want to be able to reduce inflammation. And so eating leafy greens and high antioxidant rich foods actually helps fight inflammation. And so we're going to be featuring these high vitamin C rich sources and foods that can help reduce inflammation. Another natural remedy that's beneficial is hydrotherapy. And I like talking about hydrotherapy in my workshops because hydrotherapy is an accessible way. Many of us have access to water. So it's an accessible way to do a therapeutic technique that can help reduce your stress, that can increase your white blood cells, and can also reduce any swelling or bloating or infection that you may have. Or let's say if somebody has really bad inflammation from arthritis or bad inflammation from bruising, hydrotherapy is a non-invasive way of helping to reduce that swelling and inflammation. And so you can do this with an Epsom salt bath. You can do this with contrast showers. Contrast showers are starting off with really hot water, as hot as you can handle it. Let's say you do that for 3 minutes. Ideally, you do it for a little bit longer, but if you're in a rush, do it for 3 minutes and then do 1 minute cold. And you want to repeat that at least 3 times. And so after you do this contrast of hot 3 minutes, cold 1 minute, hot 3 minutes, cold 1 minute, hot again 3 minutes, cold 1 minute, then you want to be able to rest. Ideally, if you can rest for at least 15 minutes, you can just sit down, not with your phone. Listen to some natural music, some nice healing music, calming music, or listen to nothing, or do some positive meditations or mindfulness practices. Or if you want to pray during that time, you can pray. Whatever you feel inspired to do, just rest. You can also do the hydrotherapy at the end of your day and then go to sleep. Why do you want to rest? Because during this restful period, your white blood cell counts goes up. And when your white blood cell count goes up, it actually fights infection for you. And so during this resting period, you're actually giving your body the opportunity to increase its own immunity and to increase its own defense, natural defense. And so we know that children in Scandinavia and in the former Soviet blocs like Russia and Ukraine. I know things are going on right now, but something that's practiced with children is exposing children at a young age to cold temperatures and then to a sauna, or to a sauna and then to a cold temperature. And so this is actually part of just routine living, almost like every weekend, or for young children, it's just part of their, like, what we would consider physical education time. In the winter time, they're in a sauna, they go outside, roll in the snow, come back in, go into the sauna. And so we want to try to take these techniques and adapt them in our home. We may not have a sauna in our home. We may not have a sauna in our local community. So you can use hydrotherapy instead for the hot, cold treatments. You can also do contrast showers or contrast hydrotherapy in a specific location. So for instance, you have knee swelling. You can use a hot towel or a towel put in hot water, and a towel that you have 2 buckets of water, one that's hot and one that is with ice water. And you can take, and you have 2 towels, and you could take the hot towel and apply it the same amount of time, 3 minutes or longer, and then do 1 minute of the ice cold water. And you could do just a specific location, and that will help reduce the inflammation, improve circulation, and also increase the white blood cell count. And so we're going to go to the next technique that we can use. That's a natural remedy. And this can be used for minor situations that are minor inflammations, but it could also be more serious inflammation, such as a malignant growth that could lead to, if untreated, to a tumor or cancer. And so again, this is not a substitute for medical advice. Please speak to your medical provider. Castor oil is really, really wonderful as a compress or a poultice. And so what that means is you would take a natural piece of fabric like cotton or wool or linen, and you would soak it. You would put a lot of castor oil on it, and you would apply this cloth soaked in this castor oil on the affected area. And so, that affected area could be your liver, or it could be your lungs. So you would put it in the back, or it could be on your kidneys, or it could just be maybe some bruising or swelling on your hand or on your knees. And so putting on the castor oil compress, you can leave it on overnight. I've done it on my grandmother. She has a lot of inflammation and pain from arthritis and just from being an elder person. And so this really helps her have more mobility and more movement and reduce her pain naturally. And so I will go to the next topic, and that is herbs. We're now going to transition to herbs that we can use for our healthy immune system. And, here we have a picture of cayenne pepper, chili peppers, and herbs that I love using to maintain my immune system high. And when I feel like, my defenses are low, I might be getting sick, are oregano. I make sure that I have a lot of oregano and in my recipes. If you're not big on oregano, thyme has very similar properties. In fact, oregano, thyme, margarine, I could be mispronouncing it because I don't really use it that much, have similar properties. They're antiviral, they're antifungal, and they're antibacterial. And so you can use these herbs in your food, or you can add a little bit in your, if you want to do like an herbal infusion, like a tea. It's not going to be as pleasant, but trust me, it's very good to increase your immunity. You can use cayenne pepper. You can use it as a topping, or you can, sometimes if I'm getting really sick, cayenne pepper is really, really high in vitamin C. And so if I'm getting a little bit of a scratchy throat or feeling congested, I will sprinkle some cayenne pepper in my water in the morning or in the afternoon, and I'll drink it. And that's as if I'm doing, taking vitamin C. So you may not have vitamin C, or you may run out of vitamin C. Well, if you have cayenne pepper, just sprinkle a little bit in some water. It'll be a little spicy. And the added bonus is that it'll be really good for your heart. So cayenne pepper, I love having in my medicine cabinet, my kitchen medicine cabinet, because it's good for reducing high blood pressure. And so if I'm experiencing symptoms of high blood pressure, which appear as anxiety, then, or like you have chest pain, I will take a little bit of cayenne pepper, and it helps calm that anxiety, that blood pressure. Turmeric is anti-inflammatory, and it's wonderful for our immunity. It's also wonderful for our mental health. And so I love incorporating turmeric in today's goodie bag. Participants will be able to take any herb that they like, and that includes basil or thyme or oregano. And also there's curry, because curry contains turmeric. So we have some cayenne pepper too. So participants can choose the herb of their choice. And also some of the ingredients to make our bean salad. And so we look forward to hearing from you if you incorporate these recipes for our live participants. And lemongrass. Lemongrass also has similar health benefits as oregano. It's also antifungal, antibacterial. And basil. Basil also has immunity boosting benefits. The reason I included basil is because its high mineral source is also very good for our nervous system. So previously I had mentioned in the natural remedies section that we want to reduce our stress levels in natural ways, because stress leads to inflammation, and inflammation leads to lowering our immune defense. And so basil is actually wonderful as an herb that you can use as a tea for your herbal infusion. And we're going to have a taste testing of an herbal infusion that I like to make that includes mullein that's antiviral for our lung health and for our overall immunity, some hibiscus, some lemongrass, as well as some basil. And so it's actually a wonderful blend that I really love. And so I hope that when you try it at home, and those of you who are here, when you try it here, that you love it just as much as I do. And so I believe that I can answer your questions now. And before I transition to the demonstration part, where we're going to see how to use these medicinal foods, natural remedies, and herbs that we spoke about today in a way, in a recipe. Do we have any questions?
Is your volume up at all on your laptop just so you can hear from her?
Yeah, I don't know. Let me find out. It is? Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no one in the chat, no one said they're unmuting themselves.
All right. So I'll get started. Here is a slide for where to learn more about the work that we're doing. And later on, we'll talk about our upcoming workshops. So let me get out of here, stop the share. do I need this still?
You're good,
Okay.
yeah, we'll pin the sort of above you.
Wonderful. So I'm just gonna put my apron on before I start working with the vegetables. And then I'm just going to put on some gloves. And the first recipe I'd like to start so that we can just see it in action while it's transitioning in color while we continue the rest of the recipes are the herbal infusion that I'm going to make. And so I just need a tea bag. You don't need a tea bag for this herbal infusion. You can actually strain it. I'm not sure if I have a tea bag with me. Do I have a tea bag? Actually, I'll show you how to make it without the tea bag. So the tea bag just allows you to be able to filter the herb, but we'll do it. So you're going to want to have a 1 quart size mason jar. And that's the recipe that I'm going to use. With a 1 quart mason jar, you will need 3 tablespoons, and you can use 3 tablespoons of loose leaf herb of any herb that you prefer. So for this recipe, I am going to use lemongrass, hibiscus, and basil, and a little bit of mullein. And so I'm going to do probably just a tad bit less. I'll probably just do 2 teaspoons. So 3 teaspoons actually make 3 teaspoons yield 1 tablespoon. And so I'm gonna mix and match it. Renisha, if you could help me too with the open basil. This one's not open. So I'll start with what I have available. Actually, I can just demonstrate what I'm doing, and those in the audience will be able to try the version with basil, but my preference is to do, so we have 1 tablespoon of the hibiscus loose leaf. Thank you. I can just grab it. I have an open basil. I'm gonna do 1 tablespoon of the basil. And I think what I'm going to do, I've decided, is I'm going to just do half a tablespoon of lemongrass and half a tablespoon of mullein. And this is the basil that you would season, like your pizza or your tomato sauce. It's just basil. You can get basil loose leaf herb basil that's not in the kitchen supply section, so that is possible. But I'm just showing you that that this basil is just regular basil that you can find in the store. And so I'm going to try to. I noticed that I don't have my half tablespoon, so I'm going to try to do half a tablespoon of. So I'm going to do essentially 1.5 of the lemongrass, and then 1.5. So I'm going to do 1.5 teaspoons of lemongrass and 1.5 teaspoons of mullein, and I believe that will yield 1 tablespoon because 3 teaspoons is 1 tablespoon. So I'm going to just eye it. That seems like it's about half. And this is about 1, and I'm going to do half, about half. And then the next thing you do is you're going to steep it. So you're going to add some hot water. And then you're gonna let it sit for about 10-15 minutes. And because I didn't use a tea bag, I am going to strain it when I serve it. And this, you can enjoy it hot or you can enjoy it cooled. And essentially, you can make any combination of an herbal infusion using a 1 quart size mason jar and 3 tablespoons of loose leaf herb. And there we go. And I think that I just mixed up the whole recipe. I think that I used the basil and the hibiscus and the lemongrass. Oh, I know what I did. All right, so I just halved it. So I'm gonna put this to rest somewhere, and what's gonna happen is that by the time that the tea's ready, most of the herbs would have settled. And this is a green jar, so if this was a clear jar, the prominent color would be the red from the hibiscus. And so I'll set this aside. The next recipe we're gonna make, because it's gonna be part of our tasting today, is gonna be our bean salad. I love making this bean salad with any really like soft bean that is a mild flavor, and mild flavored beans include garbanzos or cannelloni beans, or Great Northern beans, or butter beans, or even navy beans. So you can choose a mild flavored bean of your choice to make this bean salad. You want to start off with your bowl. So I'm going to set a bowl aside. I'm going to move my herbs. And so with my bowl, I am now going to first start with crushing some garlic. And garlic, as I mentioned, is wonderful for your immunity. Garlic and onions, they contain sulfur. And garlic, when you crush it, it contains allicin. And so these are essential for fighting pathogens and increasing our immunity. And sulfur is a building block to regenerating our cells. So eating sulfur-rich foods is very, very important. And sulfur is also found in brassica vegetables. So we want to be able to incorporate these sulfur-rich foods in our diet. I'm gonna crush it an Italian way that I learned in Italy, and that is with the flat of the knife. You wanna put it on top of the garlic, and you wanna just hit it, and that crushes it. In the traditional Hispanic cultures, Latin American cultures, we use a mortar and pestle to crush our garlic. And so this is just, if you don't have a mortar and pestle, I like sharing this technique because now that you have your garlic crushed, the allicin is activated. And now I slice it one way. And then I slice it another way. And then that way I get little tiny cubes. And now I'm gonna slice it another way. Essentially chopping it. So you want to chop it. You can use a food processor if you prefer. And I just try to teach old-fashioned techniques. That way, anybody with any kitchen tools can recreate these recipes easily. And once you're satisfied with how crushed your garlic is, you can proceed to the next one. Because I am making about, I think it's like almost 3 cups. Yeah, 3 cups, exactly 3 cups of the cannellini beans. I will probably do, this was one, medium large garlic. I think I'm gonna do another one. So it's nice and garlicky. You won't really experience too much of that flavor because of the beans. Unless you're accustomed to using a lot less garlic, then you will really notice the garlicky flavor. And you can flavor this. We're gonna use just garlic, salt. I'm gonna use Himalayan salt, olive oil, and lemon to season this. You can season it with oregano or basil or thyme, or, you know, a really nice combination I like is dill. Dill's also very good for the nervous system because dill, like basil, is very rich in minerals. And so that's another nice one to use if you're feeling stressed, is dill. So there's different ways of making your bean salad that will yield a little different taste. The foundation of it is you want to use your garlic, your lemon. You want to have a fat, an acid, the fat being the olive oil, the extra virgin olive oil, the acid being the lemon juice. And so if you think about our presentation today, this is wonderful for the immunity because you're getting the vitamin C antioxidants from the lemon. You're getting the sulfur from the garlic. You're getting the minerals from the salt, from the Himalayan salt or the sea salt if you use it. I like using Himalayan salt because I have about 80 minerals. You can use sea salt. Sea salt tends to have about a dozen minerals. Another salt that's very high in minerals is gray salt. So comes from marshes. And so you have the sea salt combination and land. And you can strain the beans. However, I'm going to use some of the liquid because I find that if you want to have a mashed version, like almost like a hummus, you don't want it to be too dry. So using some of the bean water is good to have that nice soft. So what I'm going to do is that once I mix everything, I'm going to mash some of the beans. So some of the beans will have the whole bean in and some of the beans will be mashed. And so you'll get like a nice chunky spread. And so that spread, you can eat it on the crackers, on the whole grain crackers. Now I'm going to add the beans. Actually, what I'll do is I'll finish the dressing. The dressing, we're going to need lemon. So if your lemon is a little bit hard, what you can do is just roll it. And because this recipe is with garlic, I'm not too concerned about this lemon tasting like garlic. But what you can do is, because I'm presenting and I didn't bring an extra knife, is you can just use the tip of the lemon to clean it out and to neutralize. You can also use salt, but I don't like salt water to neutralize that garlic taste from it. So that way, when I slice it in the middle, it's not too strong. I'm just squeezing a little bit of the lemon on it to clean it. So now we're going to cut it in half. And I am going to squeeze it. And actually, I'm going to use this and a fork. And this is one technique. Another technique is if you have a lemon squeezing thing. I don't even know what they're called. What is this called? It's a juicer. Okay, I didn't even, I went blank for a minute. So you can use a juicer, but since I have this little mesh strainer, I can just squeeze the lemon using a fork. And so that's another technique that you can use if you don't have a juicer, right? Okay, great. So that's done. I need to do another presentation. So I'm gonna get rid of some of the lemon taste, garlic taste from this. So I think we're gonna need to use the whole lemon. It didn't yield sufficient juice. And I like adding I'm glad that I remembered to do this because I forgot that something that's really nice to do is to marinate, cook the garlic or the onions by, essentially you're cooking it in acid with the lemon. And so that helps to eliminate a little bit of that sharpness, that bite, and you're still getting the benefits because it's still raw. It's just not as strong. And so you'll get the benefits. The taste will not be as I would say sharp. Garlic and onions can have a sharp taste. And I honestly think that for some people who experience bloating from onions, by marinating it with some lemon juice, you can actually make the onion a little bit more digestible because you're essentially cooking it in a raw manner. And so there we go. And I'll give it a nice stir. And now you can season it as you would like. I'm not going to season it too much because I want to show you how yummy this is plain. Now, if you want to get fancy after you taste the plain version and add some oregano or some thyme or some basil or seaweed salt, you can do that. But I just want to show you that it's very simple recipe. Just the garlic is that center showcase of this recipe. Now we're going to add the beans. And I forgot to finish the dressing with the lemons. I keep getting distracted with the beans. But I know. So with a dressing, when you're making your own vinaigrette, you want to be able to do almost 50-50 acid and base, which is the fat. It's almost 50-50. If you want it more acidic, you're obviously going to do like 60-40. I like mine a little bit more on the acidic side because I feel that when things are too oily, they're not as tasty. It's like the oil really just cancels out the other flavors. And so I like having things stay a little bit more on the lemony side when I'm making a natural vinaigrette, a lemon-based vinaigrette. And so I am now using the fork to press down because I'm going to make this like a spread. It's going to be a bean salad that has that is some part of it is going to be a little bit more crushed. And that way it makes like a nice spread when you want to eat it with crackers or on toast. I've been having this on my bread. I've been making a sandwich. It's essentially like what you think of hummus, but it's not a hummus. It's just a bean salad that you're making into part of a paste. And I need something else, and that is the oil. So I'm familiar with the salad, so I know, but if you're a novice cooker, I would suggest you to add the oil when you add when you just finish adding the lemon. And I'm just going to continue just forking through some of the larger bits. And it's becoming more the consistency of a puree right now. And so I'll put in a little bit more of the beans. And so you want to get it really, really thick, but not so thick that it is, well, it's up to you. It's up to you how you would prefer. If you like a thick spread, then you use less liquid. Then you would probably want to drain, probably what you would want to do is drain some of the bean water in a separate container and use the desired liquid in your recipe. And this literally, you're seeing me here. I don't know how many minutes I've been at this, but I don't think it's been more than 10 minutes. I think it's under 10 minutes. You have something that you can add on top of your salad. You can add it on a cracker. You can add it as a side dish if you'd like. You can add chopped vegetables to it if you would like to just add like more color or more texture. And so this is what we will be trying out with our crackers. And so I'll share with you, for those of you who are watching us, I'll share with you a suggested way of eating it. And so you can add also some cayenne pepper on top if you would like. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to sprinkle a little bit of oregano just for some color. And I didn't mix it in because I really want the garlic to be what is the showcase in this recipe. And now I am going to serve a small amount. So we have a brown rice cracker here. And that's what it would look like. And so I'm going to put this over here. And we will let this finish seasoning. So a nice thing is that, like most foods that are seasoned, they always taste better after a couple of hours or even the next day, because then all the flavors are able to just mix well together. And so you can make this recipe the day before or even the morning of and have it in the fridge and ready to serve. I actually eat this bean salad room temperature or cold. You can warm it up. So, but because it's room temperature or cold, you can put it on top of your salad. And so, so that is our bean salad. Now I'm going to show you how I make cultured vegetables. So the star in cultured vegetables is seaweed. And so I have different seaweeds that I want to show you how I incorporate seaweed iodine into my diet. And that is through, I like using this Pacific arum, I don't even know how to pronounce this, arami type of seaweed. This arami type of seaweed is very tiny. And so unlike kelp, it doesn't really, it's just like little tiny little pieces of like little tiny strands. It's kind of like the thinness of angel hair pasta. And so I like using this seaweed when I make my cultured vegetables. And so, but it's been hard to source it. So I do use kelp. And so I'm adding this here because now we're going to transition to the next recipe. So with kelp, you're going to want to have kitchen scissors because kelp is a very large plant. And so you want to make it really tiny pieces. And so I'm going to make the recipe for 1 quart size container. Well, it's a little bit larger. I upcycled a jar of coconut oil. And so it's much larger than a quart. And so I am going to guess the quantity that I need. I'm making cultured vegetables, which is different than making sauerkraut or typical traditional fermented vegetables. And the reason cultured vegetables is different is because it goes through an anaerobic process. And so we're going to actually seal this. And so you're going to want to have a jar, upcycled or not. You can use a mason jar like we use for the tea, like a quart-size mason jar, like this size, or you can use smaller, a pint size. You can use, I upcycled this honey jar, this local honey jar, and so I made cultured vegetables in here. And so I just guessed the proportions. And so I'll show you how I'm able to figure out the amount of vegetables that I need for this amount, for this size jar. And so we want to have a dish, a deep bowl that you want to put the cultured vegetables in, because as it's fermenting, it's going to release liquid, and it's going to, the probiotics start proliferating, it's going to go through a carbonation process. And so you want to have a dish that can catch those, that liquid that is coming out, that's being released. And your cultured vegetables this time of year when it's cold will probably take about a week to 10 days to be ready. When it's warm, it could be ready in 5 days or less. And so it really depends on the temperature, how soon your vegetables will be ready. The reason I love cultured vegetables is because you're making your own superfoods. And so it's a multivitamin source. So the probiotics actually convert the nutrients already existing in the broccoli or whatever vegetable you're using, the carrots, and it actually increases their nutrient count, sometimes up to 100 times more. So I really, really, really love consuming my vegetables as much as possible as a cultured vegetable. And so Donna Gates is really the pioneer behind introducing anaerobic fermented vegetables and differentiating them from typical fermented foods like sauerkraut by calling them cultured vegetables. And she's a wonderful, wonderful resource, especially when it comes to immunity issues or gut issues or even autism. She has some very interesting protocols that help reduce some symptoms of nervousness or irritability or mental health, which are essentially gut related. And so if we can increase beneficial bacteria into our diets and through superfoods, you are improving your body's immunity to be able to fight infection as well as even chronic ailments that we may be experiencing. And the other wonderful thing about making cultured vegetables is that you're increasing the probiotic count. So our plants already have L. plantarum bacteria, natural plant bacteria on these, and that's going to proliferate through the fermentation process. We're going to need some salt. A high mineral salt is better, but you can just use sea salt. And we're also going to need a probiotic. And so my favorite probiotic is Megaflora. You don't need a probiotic capsule. This just increases the beneficial bacteria. However, I do find that the investment of buying this bottle and using it to inoculate, to increase the beneficial bacteria count when I make cultured vegetables, I really spread this investment out a lot. So one capsule in this cultured vegetable will give me over, how many strains? Will give me over 14 strains of beneficial bacteria. So I'm going to go from 20 billion live cultures to, I don't even know how to count that high. So, so you can make your cultured vegetables with almost any ingredients you'd like. I have cultured radishes and they don't culture very well. They get a little soggy, so I haven't perfected that. But practically any brassica family vegetable or a hardy leafy green or vegetable, you can do that. And then you wanna, or some types of root vegetables, like a carrot. If you would eat it in a salad, you can definitely culture it. And so you can also do sprouted legumes. I've added, or sprouted grains. I've added fenugreek and sprouted mung beans to my cultured vegetables. So you can play with it. I've done a cranberry cultured vegetables with cabbage, and that was really tasty. So you can also add some fruits. And if you do add garlic, just don't add too much garlic. So if you are working with an herb that has natural antibacterial properties, just don't use too much of it because it's going to inhibit the beneficial bacteria growth that you want to grow. And one thing I didn't mention is that the reason I like promoting, I really love Donna Gates' work promoting anaerobic fermentation is because we already have too much yeast in our diet, and that's candida. And so when you're doing a zero air fermentation, anaerobic fermentation, you're actually not incorporating any wild yeast into your fermentation. So sauerkraut is open air, and so you're incorporating wild yeast. And so you have beneficial bacteria, but you also have yeast. And so with this fermentation, it's just beneficial bacteria, no yeast. And so if you have maybe some issues that are gut related because of too much candida or yeast, then this is a wonderful way of incorporating cultured vegetables. And if you don't feel like making your own, we now have a lot of new brands providing raw cultured vegetables, and they're known as raw cultures. They're going to be found in your refrigerator section. So they're called raw fermented or raw cultured or even cultured vegetables. So I'm going to clean this area up a little bit so that we can get started with our next recipe. So before I start chopping, I'm going to cut a little bit of kelp to show you how I cut my kelp. And I'm going to try to do maybe like half a tablespoon of kelp. Probably going to be a little bit less when it's really chopped up, because that's what happens with herbs is once you start chopping them or pulverizing them, all of a sudden they disappear in volume. So I want to get it quite well chopped, like little tiny squares. The kelp right now it's in its dry state. When it goes into the cultured process, fermentation process, it's going to have liquid, and so it's going to increase in its size. So you want to, I prefer it to be as small as possible, but you can have bigger chunks if you want. That's completely fine. It's your preference. And so I'm doing it fine. And really you don't taste it. It does not taste like seaweed. It tastes like something sour. It tastes like fermented vegetables. In today's tasting, we're going to have the opportunity to try last month's cultured vegetables, which were made with beets in honor of Heart Health Awareness Month. And so we did beet cultured vegetables. This one, we're going to do it with broccoli. And the interesting fun fact is that broccoli contains a higher amount of vitamin C than kale and cabbage. So broccoli, let's say with broccoli, we have broccoli, kale, and cabbage. Broccoli is number one, then we have kale, and then we have cabbage. So I find that very fascinating, how high of a source broccoli is in vitamin C. The only thing about vitamin C and vitamins in general is that vitamin-rich foods need to be consumed raw or cultured or slow cooked, because vitamins are very sensitive to heat. So you won't cook down the minerals, but you will cook down the vitamins. And so this looks pretty small. And now I'm going to do the last sliver of it. So what I'm doing is I'm cutting down and then I'm cutting across. So I'm just doing, it's kind of like little slices and then little cubes, but they're imperfect cubes. All right. The little pieces that fell. And that's what we have. This much cabbage. This much seaweed. And so you can use a little bit more, but that's sufficient seaweed for iodine. And iodine is antiviral. It's good for immunity. Iodine kills pathogens in our body. And so we want iodine for a high immunity. Now I'm going to have, I think the star of this recipe is going to be the broccoli. And then the second star is going to be the supporting vegetable is going to be some of the kale, dinosaur kale. And then we'll just add a little bit of the cabbage so that it just has different texture. And I like trying to combine, when I use vegetables, at least 3 different types of vegetables, because you end up with, when you use 3 different vegetables or 3 different medicinal food sources, the vitamins and minerals, they complement each other and you actually can better absorb them. For instance, iron can only be absorbed with vitamin C, and iron is found in beans and leafy greens and certain vegetables. And so when you're making your own dressing with a citrus fruit like lemon or lime, or you can even make it like kind of like juicy and fun with like a clementine or an orange, you can make a nice more sweet, or with a strawberry, you can make a dressing with a strawberry. When you make a dressing using a fruit that's vitamin C rich, and you eat beans or you eat leafy greens, you're actually able to absorb that iron in those leafy greens and in those beans. So I am cutting this like julienne style, sort of like julienne style. So I just have to move this over here for now. And what julienne style is julienne cut. I didn't peel the peel of the outer level of the broccoli. You can if you want, but I try to practice a no waste kitchen. So one way that you can make things just a little bit easier to chew is just by trying to make them as small as possible. And when you get really small slivers, it actually makes it more chewable. If you have a mandolin, you can slice it really thin in really thin slivers. You can use a food processor. Donna Gates is really big on food processors because she doesn't have to think about chopping. But I'm very hands-on, so I like chopping my vegetables and figuring out what I want to do. So with julienne, you're essentially getting really long slivers of the vegetables, and this is just a very it's not a very refined julienne cut. It's just more by the eye, and just what I did was I sliced the broccoli stalk. I'm trying to use everything. I sliced the broccoli stalk in about 1.5 inches. I cut it in half. Then I slice that half moon, and now I'm slicing those slivers again. And so then I'll get these tender little slivers, and you can make it smaller than that. And this is nice when you do stir fry. And I think it's nice when you have pieces of the chopped cabbage. So it's almost like similar lengths and dimension. So I'm only doing that amount for the broccoli stalk. I like using the broccoli stalk because the broccoli stalk is what contains the most calcium in the broccoli. And so I'll use the remaining stalk probably steamed or in rice or in stews. Another way you can use the stalk is if you like broccoli soup. So that's a way to incorporate more of that. And now I'm going to use the florets, the broccoli florets, and I'm going to just cut out a few that I like, and then I'll cut those a little bit more. How am I doing on time?
Can I give you a time check? We do have 15 more minutes.
Okay.
Tonight's workshop.
Okay, great. So I think we should make it. I'll rush it a little bit and I'll do a nice little toss so that we can see what mixing all the vegetables looks like. And we're gonna need to add some salt. We're gonna need to add some water. We're gonna need to add, oh, can I get please some water? And we're gonna need to add flavors of choice. I think I'm gonna use some basil. I've been really liking adding basil to my cultured vegetables. I think basil has a hint of sweetness. And so I think it's, oh, thank you. I didn't even see it. So we have this broccoli. Now you can cut this broccoli if you're gonna use broccoli as much or as little as you'd like. When I make cultured vegetables with my nieces, I let them chop it at how they like. It's a really fun activity to do with the kids. And with the children, if they're more fussy, what you can do is you can add the cultured vegetables into a dressing using a blender. So you add a little bit, so you're making a dressing, let's say like, again, I like making like a cashew dressing. So I soak the cashews, or you can soak sunflower seeds. And then I add a little bit, like maybe like 2 or 3 tablespoons. Let's say I use 2 cups of cashews that I soaked. And then I'll use 2 to 3 tablespoons of cultured vegetables, a little bit more salt. I don't use oil because the nut is already has its own natural oil and creamy texture. And then I'll put some salt and 1 clove of garlic, and it's super wonderful. And I can use that as a Alfredo sauce substitute or as a salad dressing. And so we have enough broccoli for the dish that I want to make with the cultured vegetables. Now, if you have more vegetables, you're going to have less liquid. If you use less vegetables, you're going to have more liquid. And that means more brine when I say liquid. And so I like having right now I'm finding that I like having cultured vegetables with a little bit more liquid or a little bit more brine, because when I'm sick, especially in the cold seasons, I can drink the brine, and essentially I'm drinking a probiotic superfood. So I'm drinking vitamins and minerals and probiotics, and it's way more. So instead of taking 1 capsule or 2 capsules of the probiotic, I can take just a couple tablespoons of the brine, and that is a multivitamin, multi-mineral source with beneficial bacteria. And so this is, the cultured vegetables will store until you open them. Once you open them, because it's anaerobic and now air has gone into contact, you want to shelf stabilize the temperature and keep it cool, so in the fridge, because it can spoil out in natural, in the natural temperature, surrounding temperature. But if you live in a climate that's consistently super cold, then I guess you can leave it on your counter. And so I think I'm going to add just a little bit more of the kale, then I'll add some of I'll add some of the cabbage. I'll add some salt. Now, different than sauerkraut, with the cultured vegetables, you don't need to massage it too much. So the point is that the anaerobic fermentation will do the work for you. And so a very necessary step is that you want to take part of the vegetable, part of the cabbage, or another vegetable that you're working with to function as your stopper, so as your weight. When you're making sauerkraut, you might have a glass weight or another stone weight to keep things from rising too much. And so with this, we're going to use the cabbage leaf and we're going to roll it up and that's going to function like a stopper. And when things are finished, the fermentation process, I like taking this and putting it in a separate container and then chopping it up or using it for a blended dressing. So we have 2 leaves set aside for that purpose. And now I'm going to, I think about half of it, because it's small. So this is a very small amount. So it'd probably be like a little bit less than a quarter if you use the medium cabbage, or a small, medium-sized cabbage. And I cut it in half. And now, because this is so small, I can do this. But sometimes what I do end up doing is I end up doing it, chopping it quarter by quarter. But because this is a very small amount, small size cabbage head, I can just cut across. And you want to try to make sure that your vegetables are as closely the same size as possible. They don't have to be all the same size. What that does is that it helps that things ferment evenly. Because I do ferment, I do leave my cultured vegetables fermenting until I need them, and I'm always fermenting something or making a cultured vegetables, then I'm not too worried about fermentation time. I always have something available. So I think that's enough vegetables for this container. And I'm gonna put some salt. I'm gonna use some sea salt. And you wanna use plenty of salt because beneficial bacteria really love minerals, salt. And so I'm gonna do that, and I'm gonna add some basil as my herb, but you can add your herb of choice. You know, maybe it's oregano, maybe it's garlic. Just don't use too much, because then it will take a really long time to ferment. And now we're going to mix it. And like I said, it doesn't have to be perfectly mixed, just enough that we get it well blended and distributed. And I love these colors. And then we're going to use a funnel to put things in, or if you have children, really small hands, to put this in here. Okay, and so it's pretty much full, and this is gonna get in here. Go in here, then I'll show you my technique to make the cabbage ball that we're gonna use as a stopper. And we had these 2 leaves on the side, so I'm gonna use, I essentially fold it in and then fold that end part. And then the softest part, the top part, that's what I use to fold over as a flap to keep it there. And so because I need a little bit more, so when you're making cultured vegetables, you wanna make sure you don't have any air space. So this top right here, you wanna make sure that there's something almost to the top, because by filling the air, then you're not allowing for yeast in the air to have room to proliferate. You want to make sure that the bacteria takes over, and so you want to make sure there's no air, and you do that with this ball of cabbage, the stopper. And so I'm going to tuck this in here. And now we're going to add, I'm going to make sure it hits kind of like the top. Now I'm going to add the probiotic capsule. And this is just something that I've learned from doing this recipe various ways. You can add the probiotic when you're mixing the vegetables. I've learned not to, just personal preference. I've done it that way before. because essentially it's so microscopic that you're gonna end up with some of the probiotics in the bowl. So why do that? So I just empty it in here. It's soluble and it's meant to be swallowed. So I actually add the capsule in here too. And that's going to help it proliferate. And so what is existing on the plant is going to now become multiplied with the other beneficial bacteria. And we add some water. And you want to fill the water to the top. So once the water hits the rim, that's when you know that I'm going to just kind of squeeze it like this so that I can get more water in faster. You want to fill it with water to the rim, not to the very top rim, but let's say to the bottom where you have the bridges for the cap. So if I press it, the water rises. And so this is actually going to still, I think it's so beautiful. You can add some color by adding, like pieces of fruit if you're into that. Try to do fruits that has a little bit firmer consistency so that it doesn't fall apart. And now you can seal it. I prefer to seal it with a piece of plastic that you can reuse or chop up. I don't like using the mason jar plastic lids because air gets in. So I haven't really found another way of doing this technique. I think that's the compromise I'm always struggling with. Climate and then being healthy. And so I'm hoping that more is invested in fungi that eat plastic so that we can have more biodegradable solutions. So I'm going to cut this in half now. And there we go. And now I'm going to seal it. The reason I do this is because it actually helps to avoid the metal from getting oxidized because of the bacteria and acid formation. And so I don't want that happening. And that happens to the mason lids when they are very close to this. So you don't want it too tight. You want it just tight enough that, and you want to put it now in this bowl, put it, under somewhere away from sunlight and away from too much change in the temperature. You want the temperature where you place it to be consistent. And this will be ready in about a week. And so thank you very much for coming to today's Food as Medicine workshop.
7:28. I don't know if you want to take any questions, if there are questions. We haven't seen any coming in on the chat, but it's up to you what you want to do.
Yeah, if anybody wants to stay behind, I'm going to have the in-person participants to start trying the recipes so they can try the recipes. And if anybody in the Zoom wants to ask me any questions, I'm happy to take those questions.